Well, so you mentioned that you're from Ohio, and I guess that's why my wife follows you. Because how I started following you was through my wife. My wife is from Ohio, so
Okay.
and I'm noticing a pattern too because she follows like 3 or 4 people that she was like, hey, you should talk to this person, and they're all for freaking Ohio. So she's trying to hit
We're
me something.
everywhere.
Yeah. What part of
Ohio is everywhere. Like Texas, there's a bunch of Ohio people in Texas.
I know.
We're in Florida. We're in Arizona. Like, where are Ohio people not?
I always joke around with her because I always tell her there's not an Ohio person that wants to stay in Ohio because she wants to move back, and
Yeah.
I'm not totally opposed to it, but it's just not Texas to me. So it's like maybe we'll move in the middle, like Tennessee somewhere.
Yeah.
So I always joke around with her.
That's
I always joke around with her.
that's yeah, that's fine. Here's where I'm going to vouch for Ohio is that I think we like to like adventure. Like me personally, I like to look at all the other places. Like I don't want to live there, but I want to be able to go there and then I come back to Ohio, which is the heart of America, right? We're
Right.
we're in the heart of America and we have all seasons. So if you like winter, we gotcha. You like the spring, you like seeing everything flourish and green, the smells and the grass. We gotcha. We have fall where autumn like turns all the leaves brown. Like we got it all.
Yeah, she hates Texas, but we live in a bad part. We live on the Gulf Coast in the Houston area. So
Okay.
it's extremely humid. It's gross.
Yeah.
The bugs are the size of footballs. Like you can't walk in the grass barefoot because you'll get stung by a bug. So that's the kind of stuff that she misses.
Yeah. Well, maybe you should, just check it out. Come back, visit Ohio and just see about it.
Yeah. No, we do often. So Katrina, introduce yourself. I've been following you for I guess a few months now on Instagram, and I enjoy the content that you share because you're not like gross about it, I guess is a good way to say it. You follow some like fitness slash holistic health influencers, and they're just like there's a line in the sand, and you provide a lot of nuance in your information, and it's more palatable. It's more, I guess, digestible for people to consume, and I appreciate that about you.
That's great because okay, well, I'll introduce myself. It's actually pronounced Catarina. So
Katarina.
I get Katrina a lot.
Okay.
Caddy, like people think it's Katie because my Instagram is Caddy_Lee. So don't feel like you just like, oh, I butchered it. That's
Yeah.
okay. I get that a lot. But I'm glad that it's receptive, even from a man's perspective, because I share a lot of stuff like directly for women and about women. So that you even follow some things and you're like, oh, that kind of portrays to me, or I can relate to that or resonate with it is really good to hear that it's sometimes I feel like I'm only talking to women and, it's actually being heard by other people.
No, yeah. Well, see, I have two older daughters. I have a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old. So
Okay.
I understand our human bodies are completely different. So I try to consume as much information as possible, and then that way I can help share with them as well. So it is. I think your info helps men as well in that regard. This podcast episode is brought to you by Signature Touch. Signature Touch is veteran owned and operated, and it was started by my wife and myself with a mission to provide the highest quality, all natural skincare products made from ethically sourced ingredients. We have body butters, lip balms, and deodorants. And the best part is you could use it on yourself, and they're safe for everyone in the family, including your children. My wife's favorite body butter is Bernilla. It's made with bergamot and vanilla botanical extract. People say it smells like key lime pie. My favorite is Lavensense. It's made with lavender essential oil and frankincense. It makes your skin feel so nourished, but it's also good on bug bites and rashes. Check us out today. The website is oursignaturetouch.com. Use code JLA to receive 10% off your first purchase. The website, it's oursignaturetouch.com.
I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad it's receptive to both and that you can take things, even if it's about women, you can learn more about the women that you love in your life. And I think that's what's important is we all start to understand each other because we are so different.
Yeah. So how did you get into this niche, I guess? How did you stumble into this fitness and health lifestyle? Do you coach people online? You have clients that come to you? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, so I started out, actually, my career started in physical therapy. So I went through the systems of school, I got my bachelor's, and then kind of funny you mention it because my sister is a physical therapist, and she was like, well, you probably won't be able to make it through PT school. So why don't you be a PTA? And that's just kind of like the story of like my childhood is that I was kind of like the dumb one or like, I was the athlete. You can't be smart and be an athlete. And so that's a story for another day. But health always interested me on learning about the human body. So with athletics, I was learning about the human body to support my sport. I ran track in college. And then after college, I was wanting to fill that athlete void. How can I still like feel validated and, prove my worth? Because for so many years, you are kind of awarded for your athletics, your success and, hitting PRs. And like now you're not having like accomplishments or praise from your parents, like, or social media, like sharing your, record breaking things is like, oh, there's no more like cool stuff. Okay. So I got into bodybuilding. And from there, I competed for 5 years in bikini bodybuilding. So I went from like a well-rounded health person with an athlete focus into extreme obsession. And that was my own doing. Like I walked into that, wanting to be an athlete, and it just takes you very far. It takes you to some depths you were never at before. And so after 5 years, I kind of started to experience some hormonal issues that I'd never experienced in my life. I packed on 50 pounds in like 8 months, 8 or 9 months, and I'd never been over 135 pounds in my life. And not that weight really matters, but that's something compounded so quickly over time. And I was feeling awful. My gut was a mess. So at that point, I was coaching women. I was kind of more like a fitness coach, right? You're coming to me, we're going to help you out with macros and we're going to help you lose weight. And through that journey of my own health crisis, it was like, wow, there is so much more to this picture about women's health that we're missing in this fitness industry. And it was, supporting hormones. So I started to get more education in hormones, certifications in that, and then working with a bunch of practitioners myself to go through my own hormonal imbalance journey. And from there, it just kept peeling back all these layers of like, okay, here's hormones. Now we're doing gut health. Now we're doing holistic health and spiritual realm, like tapping into your spirituality. I just kept peeling back so many layers and really just pivoted into holistic health, which is, I think some people think it's like green smoothies and essential oils. Like we're just like distributors for that stuff. And it's not if you're an actual holistic health coach. So I got my certification in that, and I'm still currently in it in the year-long program because I do have my own coaching practice. So for me to like cram a certification that's so complex in a little bit of time, I was like, whoa, I need to like be able to dive into this slowly. So that's kind of where my journey led me, is almost like my own issues led me to my own healing. And then now I want to do that for others.
Do you think the bodybuilding part of your life kickstarted all the health issues? Because I know people see bodybuilders and they look amazing, but their
Yeah.
bodies are pretty messed up. And I can imagine as a bikini competitor, you're pretty depleted with all the minerals and you're basically starving yourself, aren't you?
Yeah. But so my boyfriend's a wrestler. So when I compare my bodybuilding, season of life to his wrestling, he didn't even get to eat food. Like he couldn't eat food at all. He could barely have water. So I'm like, all right, bodybuilding wasn't as bad as that. But for a woman, and this is kind of what I was learning about women's health, is that we have more body fat for a reason. We have periods for a reason. And when I lose that function of my period, I am directly impacting my physiology. I'm directly impacting my health and how I show up in the world. So was bodybuilding bad for me? There were ways I could have done it better. I literally didn't take any time off. So I would compete show after show after show, never giving myself a chance to get my food intake back up and then stay there for a hot minute. Because I had taken your body to such an extreme, I went from 130 pounds to walking around 110 pounds on stage, like literally the body of a little girl. So moving past that like comfortability where my body set point was at to this extreme, I was never now comfortable at 130 again. So as soon as my weight would start creeping up, I was like, let's do another show. Like I want to cut. And now here I am 3 years later after finishing my last show, and I have not tried to lose weight in 3 years. I have finally let my body get this maintenance level where I'm not trying to manipulate it in any way. It is resting here. I'm feeding it well. We're thriving, and it settles at a weight that is actually right for you and for, what you're feeding your body, how you're moving it. You'll eventually get to that point where I don't have to like try to like diet every season and like finally give my body a chance to just do its thing.
Yeah, and be optimal, I guess, at homeostasis. What I feel like holistic, that term holistic health coach, I feel like it's becoming a little bit more mainstream. Whereas 10 years ago, if you said holistic, you're kind of a cuckoo, you're kind of like a witch doctor. Do you kind of see the same? Do you feel like it's making a comeback?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are starting, and maybe this is just because this is a community that I see a lot, but I think people are starting to wake up to returning back to nature. And what I mean by that is like going back to the basics, really starting to pivot the talk of, there's body positivity going on. I don't really want to dive into that conversation, but it's more so like, all right, maybe this whole like dieting thing is bullshit. Like maybe we don't need to be dieting and doing every little diet, every season. And women are more targeted than men, but I think people are really starting to open their eyes to what about eating? Like, what about just eating what's growing from my grounds? And that's kind of what I mean by returning back to nature is getting outside, eating the vegetables, basically the fruit of our earth, and connecting with people. We have more and more social media happening. And I think people are taking a step back and saying, I need a social media detox. Like I need to close this down. I need to step away because I need to get back to me. And with a lot of mental health issues, since COVID really being rampant and rising. We have infertility rising. We have all these things. You really like to start questioning and saying, is the way our society is set up right now, is our Western medicine, is all this actually conducive to our best well-being and therefore our offspring? And honestly, I have to say right now, no, but there is a lot of good things happening. And there are people making moves to shift back to even making their own food at home, like making their own bread. Like that's something that I dove into this year. So I do think people are starting to wake up in a sense of, I don't think what's working for us right now is actually working.
How do you differentiate yourself and make yourself and the information that you sell or share stand out? Because there's so much information and all these diets. Like there's a carnivore diet, that's a whole community, and then there's the plant-based community, and then there's the animal-based community. There's like and then that's just diet. You go into to working out, there's like the kettlebell crew, the running crew. It's just so much information. Sometimes, I find myself kind of going down a rabbit hole and I'm like, oh wait, that's just like one side of the spectrum. So how do you, because holistic health in my mind, when I think about it, I feel like it's a well-balanced thing that encompasses a lot of different areas. So how do you help like share that information? If someone is coming to you for help and they're seeking your guidance, how do you explain that on a phone call or a 5-minute conversation?
That's a good question. As far as sharing, content and information, I just share what I feel like is truth. And there's always going to be polarity. There's always going to be an opposite thing, right? Like with every single thing. So really, it is kind of getting that balance. But again, if we go back to our society, there's information overload. So some things people might be seeing from my content is just like too much for them. And now they're confused. And I think this kind of goes back to the state of our society and the hustle culture. The chronic stress is nervous system related, is we're all like hyper aroused, right? We're all on edge. We're all stressed out. And so information can seem really daunting and overwhelming when you're in those heightened states and looking for a quick fix. Because I think our society as well, with medications and pills. I mean, supplements is still kind of, people are giving those out the same way as medications. So I think it's really just alluding to people that there can be a quick fix, and then they're seeing all this information. And so when I get on calls with someone, it's really to peel back and say, like, it doesn't have to be this super narrow lens you're looking through. It doesn't have to be something super complicated, but it's going to take time. And we're going to start with making sure you're well fed, because so many women are coming to me and they're so depleted. And that's, again, we have to talk about the dynamics of relationships now, as women are working full time and they're being a mother and they're trying to support, their husband and be there for them. And they're kind of stepping into all the roles of a family. Maybe they even have this impression that they should be able to do everything themselves. And there's just so much at women that, we are really depleted. And not only that, just with the way that we are living our lifestyles, but our foods and our soil, everything is depleted. Everything is harder to consume the most. So that's kind of where I start. And I don't want to say people are bought in immediately, because it goes against everything they've learned. Right. Everything society and media, magazines, everything that has been showing women is that less is more. You need to be skinnier, and this is how you be skinny. You need to do this diet. You need to do this cleanse. You need to do this detox. And they're just like, I don't even know what to do, but let's just get right to it. And so when you tell them that we're going to do the opposite that you've ever thought about, that you've ever thought is improvements to your health, when they see it work for them, they start to believe it. But I don't want to say right off the bat they believe it.
Right. When women are coming to you, and what do their diets typically look like? Are they, I imagine you have really skinny patients or clients, and you have ones that are probably obese and overweight. What is this, what's your approach, and what are the staples of the foods that you tell them to incorporate?
I would say it goes kind of across the board. Yes, we do have, or I'll have some obese clients, but I'll also have some just regular women that have been supporting their health and supporting their fitness journey. And most of the people that I see are from a fitness industry, from a fitness lifestyle, which I used to be in with bodybuilding. So I also get, now that I've shifted to more, the complex healing, parasites and liver support, hormone imbalances, I'm getting more complex cases. So we can't do the same things that they've always done their whole life. That's never going to work. So the way in which you got sick is not going to be the way that you heal. And you also can't hit your body into healing. And I feel like this stuff goes so much deeper than nutrition, because it's the way people view themselves. It goes back to childhood, what they learned from their mother, what they learned from their parents, or what people said to them. The things that they saw in, again, social media, or maybe social media wasn't part of their youth, but the way that media and messages have been to them. So there's so much around it, which is why I love holistic health, because it doesn't just talk about your physical health. We're just not talking about hormone imbalances. We're talking about why you are suppressing your feminine. Why are you stepping into majority of your masculine? What's kind of going on there? So it takes into account the emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical body. So I don't really analyze diets so much of they're coming to me and they're so wrong. A lot of times they're coming to me with what they think is their best, right? And so we can't judge, if somebody does come to me and it's 800 calories, I kind of have to look at that and say okay, this is where we're at. Let's shift and start to go here. It's not a dramatic, oh, you're eating 800 calories. You need to be eating at least 2,300. If I were to do that, that would never even sit with them, right? That would be so disgusting to them, because they're used to eating so little. And also we talk about nervous system, which is the root of how we show up in the world, the way our body operates. If you go 0 to 100, your nervous system doesn't like it. So you have to do things slow and steady for your body to accept it and welcome it. And then that change can happen. So I don't really like to dissect too much into they're eating this food or that food, because they're already coming to me super overwhelmed. Right. So it's kind of peeling back the basics of, all right, the most important thing right now is let's start to get more intake up. And then how will that look if we're balancing blood sugar, which is probably the next important thing, is balancing your blood sugar within your plate, not just, I think people only care about blood sugar or think it's relevant if they're pre-diabetic or they're a diabetic. It's this shit matters all the time. This is directly correlated to your nervous system. Again, the way you show up in the world. So if you've ever experienced, guys can get away with this much easier than women, but if you skip a meal, you come back and you're ravenous. You're like, I'm going to eat everything in sight because maybe you haven't eaten all day. That is huge blood sugar drops, and you're going to reach for anything to give you the quickest calories as possible. And your body doesn't care what that is, which is why you usually grab processed foods, because it's already done. It's already made. You don't have to have any time putting together cooking foods. Like, that takes too long. Your body's smart. It's like, we need it now. So you've already experienced what that feels like to have low blood sugar. And again, you are ravenous. Your nervous system is imbalanced, where when I say that, I mean that you're not in a regulated state where you can handle stressors and it doesn't totally derail you. Nervous system dysregulation is you're either stuck in the extremes or you can't get out. So maybe you're super aroused and you feeling calm is still in arousal and you haven't came all the way back down. So it's kind of like a ladder. Coming back down into a regulated state is you can go into a fight or flight state, but you come back down. You go back to regulation. So we see this in nature. I like this example, when a zebra or whatever is, getting hunted down and, maybe that zebra is even attacked and she makes it out alive because for whatever reason, the predator, whatever, went away, distracted, whatever. Animals have to regulate themselves back from literally a life or death situation. And you'll see this in nature where that animal was just almost attacked or got out alive. And not even 20 minutes later, they're out grazing on grass. How are they even thinking and caring about food when they were just in a huge life or death situation? Is animals know how to regulate. They literally regulate themselves right back rather than stay like what we do, because nobody teaches us how to get ourselves back into center. We will have a life or death situation, maybe a car accident, a near car accident. Maybe if you've ever experienced that, like your heart races so much, you're like, oh my God, I almost got in a wreck. And we don't know how to bring ourselves back down. But that's what we can learn from nature, is being able to support our bodies. Like, okay, we're here. Like, we're not hurt. We're safe. Like, let's take some breaths. Let's let it go. Or maybe the slowness doesn't work for us and we need to go move our bodies. We need to go shake. And you'll see animals do that too. After that attack or near death, they'll shake their bodies like horses when they shake their backs or something like that. It's like they're literally shaking and moving that energy and that cortisol that they just experienced to pull themselves back down to safety.
Do you think being active, like if someone's already fit and they do like a workout, or they work out consistently, do you think they're able to reach that homeostasis a lot quicker than people that don't exercise? Because I feel like if you're I guess stimulating yourself weekly or daily with some type of exercise, when you have those stressful moments that cause you to reach that level, that's kind of I guess your body's used to that because you've been working out. Is that similar to that or no?
I don't really know how to answer that, because you have to think too, sometimes a workout is still charging. It's still heightened state of arousal, which is why you have a certain intensity when you go for a workout, depending on, what type of workout. But like if you're doing a slow run, you're probably not super hyper focused. You're not super aroused. But when we go to do a workout, that's why we get pumped up, right? It's like we're actually heightening our nervous system so that we can feel powerful. We can feel strong. So that's a good nervous system response though, right? Like doing a workout is a healthy response, but how do you regulate yourself afterwards? And this is where I'll tell my clients, like the warm up and the cool down, like we're guiding into that, heightened state. And then after the workout, let's pull ourselves back down. And usually that's, stretching after your workout, or maybe that's going for a little walk or something along those lines to kind of pull us back down, because that is something that heightens our nervous system, but it's a good state. So It's like doing this right here. Like this is, nervousness. Like this is, we're speaking or public speaking or holding a meeting and doing a presentation. Those are all heightened states of stress, but we have to be able to bring ourselves back down. But as far as fitness, I can't really answer that because that's so like person dependent, because some people will utilize exercise as their only means of stress management. And that's kind of what we're talking about here, is pulling ourselves down from a stressful event. So it's different. And I don't really think the fitness level always pertains to people's ability to regulate themselves.
What's the one area that that you see most with women that they need help in? Is it with nutrition, or is it with exercise, or is it a combination of both? Is there kind of like a reoccurring theme that you see
Mhm.
with women that are coming to you?
I think a lot of it can be also combined in the same thing. So, um, typically, they could be struggling with nutrition as far as they don't even know what to eat anymore. They're like, I don't know what's right for me. And then they can also be on the other spectrum. They're working out so much because that's the only thing that they feel like they do know how to do. Like,
Mm,
surely I know how to run and move my legs. Like, and maybe their workouts are a way that they can combat how they can control their food. So sometimes they're the same, but I would say across the board, I don't worry so much as women's workouts. You know, I'll build a workout program for them, but I don't worry as much about that and their ability to do it. It's more so the nutrition. I think it's a big one because we're at the point with the information overload where women just they don't even know what to eat anymore. And when we're talking about nervous system, we've been talking about today, it's also, you know, super heightened. So they're not grounded. They're really not connected with themselves. And maybe I just, you know, shared a post the other day about birth control is it totally disconnects different parts of a woman's body, like literally disconnects her brain from her ovaries. And that in itself is a disconnection from a woman to herself. So she also doesn't trust herself. She doesn't trust her body. She feels like she is against her body. So it's more of a war against her body that it's not together. She can't really make the best choices for her health because she doesn't even trust what her body is telling her. So I feel like at the root of everything, it's getting women to trust themselves again, showing them that food isn't bad and that their body needs this and it'll do like things to make you feel good. Like it'll help you with your workouts. Like it'll help your digestion feel better. It'll help how you show up in relationships. It'll help how you are managing with your children that are throwing tantrums. Like this all is a part of food, and food completes us, and minerals, especially minerals, will complete us too and close us off so we aren't leaking energy. We aren't draining ourselves to things that maybe don't matter. And it really helps us feel whole and solid, and energy within us stays within us, not leaching out everywhere. So I do feel like nutrition is the biggest part where just people feel lost. But I mean, that's also the messaging too. We're telling people, don't eat that, be this, be that, paleo, gluten-free, blah, 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 blah. It's like so many messages.
yeah.
How the heck can you know? And especially when you're disconnected from yourself, we will never know what's right for us because we don't even listen to what our body needs. We're like, you're hungry? No, no, no. I'm going to drink water because I've heard and read for dieting that if you're hungry, just drink water. It's like we would never have made it this far if our body didn't know the difference between hunger and thirst. Like
Yeah.
we would not be here if like our ancestors from hundreds of years ago felt like they were hungry, but they just drank water instead. Like we wouldn't be existing here. Your body is smart and it knows best, but we think we know better because of the messaging that we've received. Like just drink water, you'll be fine.
Have you heard of the GAPS diet?
I have not.
I forget. I talked to like the creator on the podcast, I think her name's Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride. I think that's it. But
Okay.
she equated our gut to soil health, and you were kind of hitting on soil health and our gut. And she says that our gut, um, there's bacteria and there's microbes in our gut that's similar to the soil, and we have to start taking care of our gut because our gut's connected to the brain, and it sends signals back and forth. And she was getting really like way above my head, and I don't understand a whole lot of it. What I just told you is like the max of what I understand.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of correlation there. Like the soils, we're spraying glyphosate, all kinds of crazy chemicals that are killing the good microbes in our soil. And to me, that's what processed food is. When we consume
Mm.
processed food, we're just wrecking our gut, and our bodies don't know how to respond to that.
I feel like I'm like thinking of so many different ways to go from this. I haven't heard of that specific diet that you were mentioning, but her concept, he or she, absolutely. It's not that I don't want to say like our gut is the exact same microbiome as soil, but soil has its own microbiome. Like, this is why I feel like returning to nature is so important, because everything in nature has a purpose and it can literally heal and regenerate itself. But what you're saying with spraying our crops, and now we have pesticides and herbicides and chemicals leaking into our soil, is it's killing our soil. And so that same microbiome of the soil is a equal, not the exact same, but we are more bacteria than we are human cells. Like, if you understand that, that'll literally blow your mind when you think about antibiotics, when you think about constant, like when COVID happened, we're all just alcohol everywhere. Like, yeah.
Oh God, it's crazy.
And I think about, if you look into a lot of like women's beauty products, it's like there's so much alcohol in it. It's like the ingredients in it contain alcohol. It's like, okay, so we are more bacteria than we are human cells. And we are literally wrapping ourselves in these bubbles to protect ourselves from bacteria, when that is what we are. So yes, we're killing our soil, that it's now dirt. And dirt cannot form new crops. And that's why regenerative farming is so beautiful. It's because it's restoring soil health. If we take care of soil, we're going to take care of our crops, and we're going to reap the benefits at all. And composting, like, put our shit back into the soil. Like, let fungi, let the bacteria eat up that shit that we just, put out as waste, like food scraps, eat it back up, replenish it into new soil. Like, there's so much we can go off of there. But yeah, absolutely. There is a huge connection to gut health and even mental health. But like, all these things that we are doing, the chemicals and even medications, every single medication leaches a nutrient from your body. Right. So there's just so much at play into this conversation.
Yeah. She even talked about how she doesn't take medication like for a fever, because a fever is a response that your body's like naturally playing out to fight the infection or to fight the virus. And when you take an aspirin or a Tylenol to reduce the fever, you're I forget how she explained it, but you're interrupting your body's normal process to fight that stuff. So next time you get a fever, your body doesn't know how to respond all the way. I guess I'm butchering the hell out of the way she was saying it, but it was a really fascinating conversation, because I was thinking about my kids, and when my kids were young, I have a set of twins, and when they were young and they would get fever, I remember giving them fever reducer, Tylenol, to break the fever. And I asked her about her kids, and she's like, no, we let our kids if it wasn't crazy, we let our kids' bodies naturally fight it. And I was like, damn it, I just killed my kids with Tylenol like for a couple of years. But
you didn't.
It's there's so much information to learn. You're talking about regenerative farming. That's a topic that I'm obsessed with right now, where I'm actually filming a documentary right now with some people in the regenerative community, and I love talking about that. Do you talk about that kind of stuff with the clients that you help?
Yeah. So when I talk about holistic health, yes, I have my one-on-one time with clients, but every week I'll drop educational videos. I call them mini trainings on just the different topics around this. And my email list, I literally just put an email out this week about composting and how I live in an apartment, and I'm like, I'm doing this in my apartment. Like, I just made dinner the other night and I was cutting up strawberries and the ugly parts of potatoes and just threw them in the trash. And I'm like, like, if I'm just one person doing this and I had so much like food waste, like I can't imagine, even fathom how much we are all just throwing away into landfills that are now releasing more carbon into our environment. And we're reducing our plants. We're cutting down trees all the time. We have all these natural devastations. We are building more and more and more. The more we remove plants, the less that carbon is absorbed into the ground. And that's also a component of the regenerative agriculture, is restoring soil health so we can keep our atmosphere clean. The plants literally help us out so much. They're literally holding in harmful chemicals and toxins for us. Like, how amazing. Like, even in your home, if we talk about EMFs, right?
Yeah.
We can't feel Wi-Fi. We can't feel Bluetooth, but we know it exists, right?
Yep.
Right. Yeah. So plants, they can help absorb those EMFs in your home, and something like a snake plant. So what I started doing this year is putting big pots of plants next to like my Wi-Fi router, next to like all like behind the TV, like all the electrical cords, like just, it's very aesthetic too, but it's
Yeah.
like, let's just put a plant there. That just helps us out a little bit with these EMFs that, we are exposed to constantly. And we don't even know the long-term studies of this, because this is just increasing so much all the time. There's Wi-Fi wherever you go. I was watching a commercial the other day. There's cars that now have built-in Wi-Fi into it.
Gosh.
We are connected to our phones 24/7. We have the watches, we have the AirPods, the MacBooks. Like,
Yeah.
we don't know.
I didn't know that plants can absorb EMFs.
Yeah.
Holy, is there a certain plant that's better than another?
Um, I'm not going to say there's a certain plant better than other. I just recently read over this, and the only plant that's like sticking in my mind right now is snake plant. But I would assume like a lot of plants can help. So if you at least just have more plants in your home, that would be beneficial. But off the top of my head, the only one I can recall right now is a snake plant.
Bro, my house is about to be filled with these damn snake plants. I don't even know what it looks like, but I'm about to go
It's
ham on some snake plants right now. I didn't know
it's
that. That's
yeah,
cool.
it's literally like a straight up piece. I guess they're supposed to look like snakes, but it's like just out of the ground, like a straight up, like somewhat curvy piece with a pointed. Yeah, they're
Uh,
pretty and they're aesthetic, but yeah, they help us out so much by absorbing those things. Because it's the same. It's Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, all that is low level radiation, whereas we understand the high level of X-rays, MRIs, but like your airport security, if you're a frequent flyer, like you're
uh,
getting a lot of that exposure by walking through that little thing there, that scan, and you can opt that out. Like, go for a pat down if you're cool about it. But
yeah.
even like our dental X-rays, I had my dentist, try to give me an X-ray after I just had one 6 months ago. I was like, my teeth are great. No, I'm just kidding. But like,
Yeah.
my teeth are fine. I have no issues. Like, you don't need to be doing an X-ray on me for what? Like, I literally have no impaction. Like, there's nothing going on. That is unnecessary, and that's exposure that I don't need. And I mean, when you even get those, they literally slap this thing on you,
I know.
and
They walk
they
out.
leave. They leave the room. It's like, if it's that freaking deadly that you are leaving the room and you're putting all this protection around me, why are we getting exposed to this so much more than we really need?
Exactly. But it sounds foo-foo and you sound kind of funny. Like I'm vibing with it. I feed off of it. But if you tell like my parents that or someone
Oh yeah.
who's kind of separated from this information, they just think you're kind of crazy. It's not normal information because in their mind
Yeah.
it's like it's safe because everyone's doing it, you know?
Yeah, but did your parents, like, even as a kid, when I first got my cell phone, I remember my mom saying, like, don't sleep with your phone under your pillow, because I was doing that at night. She's like, get your
Mm,
phone away from your brain. Like, and so I think we all have a little, like, we have a little thought there that we know that, like, be careful, or like,
yeah.
this might not be right. That little intuition comes out, right? Our inner wisdom, this like system that is so miraculous that we have no even concept of this intuition. But that little like voice that we hear, it's like, there's something about it. And I remember my mom saying something like that. And then we started the conversation of, don't put your phone in your back pocket, or like, men, don't put your phone in your front pocket next to your like testes. So like that messaging has been around. I just think we only associate it in just that one thing. Like, we didn't really think about, oh, well, like, that's the same thing as Wi-Fi. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, it's everywhere. You were talking about composting in your house, and that made me think of a conversation I had with this guy named Daniel Griffith. He's a regenerative rancher in Wisconsin, and I think the nonprofit he operates is the Robinia Institute. Real awesome guy. He's an author, and he's kind of I think he's polarizing to the regenerative movement just because he speaks about it from a different angle. But he said one thing that stuck with me, and I asked him, how can everyday people help? Like, how can the everyday person get involved? And he
yeah.
said, just look down at your 2 feet and start there. And
Hmm.
like to me, that hit home because I can make a difference in my home, and
Yeah.
that's a difference. And you can
Hmm.
make a difference. You say you were
Yeah.
living in an apartment, you can
Yeah.
still make a difference if you
Yeah.
just look down at your. It sounds cliche and it sounds like funny, but to me, that's if we really want to make a change in the world, we all have to do it. Like it's not going to be folks like Daniel by himself. He's going to need all of our
Yeah.
helps doing it. And to me, that kind of hit home.
Yeah. Well, and think about it too. I talk with a lot of women who maybe want their significant other to pursue better health and make, if they're changing their life, like we talk about reducing plastic in homes, you don't always have to like convince your significant other or family to like do this thing, right? Because they have to get to that point themselves, right? Because all of us are on a different journey. And what you can do is just do it for you, like change the things for you, and they'll pick it up and they're going to be interested in what you're doing because you're going to act differently, right?
Yeah.
Like you're going to feel differently, you're going to feel better, and they'll want to, like, people pick up on good energy and real energy that's, authentic and good in nature. So other people will pick up on that. So even in an apartment, if somebody sees me doing something as a health benefit, like I think I was out here barefoot in their little like center area. And, from a person's perspective, they might think like, oh, she's weird. And that's cool. Like you can think that, but I like kid you not, you're going to be thinking about this one day and you're going to want to be barefoot, or maybe you don't even like think that, maybe you're barefoot anyways, and you don't realize there's actually a lot of health benefits from it. It's just what you do. And if you share what you do, it doesn't have to be forcing it on anybody. You just be like on my social media, I just share a lot of shit that I'm just doing.
Yeah.
And people will be like, oh, I'm interested in that. And their interest, that's their own, right? I didn't force that on them. Their body, their state of being accepted that information. So that's going to lead them onto their own journey and however they get there.
Hey, you're planting seeds every day. And
Yeah.
those seeds stay with people. Can you talk about grounding? I do it, but I don't really understand what the health benefits are. I know like there's the magnetic, I don't even know. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I do it, and I tell my family to do it. So we all go outside and we do it. The first time, funny story, the first time, you of course know who Liver King is, right?
Yeah.
So that's where
I've heard of him.
okay. Well, that's the first person I heard of doing it. So, and I was watching them. So I take my kids out. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning and I'm barefoot and they're like on their phones. And I'm like, put the damn phones down. We're all going to be barefoot on the grass. So I'm like drinking my cup of coffee and I like just 10 seconds in the grass and a wasp stings my foot. And I'm like, oh crap. And they're like, yeah, I'm not going to do that, bro.
Oh no, they saw just
Yeah.
not a great situation. That happens like at times. So about grounding, let's go back to when you were a kid. Weren't you always like kicking your shoes off? Actually, you probably don't remember this because most of us don't, but like your parents were always putting your freaking shoes back on your feet because you kept kicking them off. Like when we were born, we didn't want things on our feet because our feet and our hands have the most neurons in them. Like all of our sensation is in our hands and our feet. That's what guides us. And, even thinking back to physical therapy knowledge that I have, it was like, we want to see how you walk barefoot. Like we want to see how your body knows what to do with your steps, because what your body perceives from just the bottom of your foot knows how to direct. Like, okay, are we feeling steady and balanced here? Okay, cool. Then we'll go. We'll keep moving on. So when we take it back to, we weren't meant to have these shoes on. Our shoes are, again, another source of disconnection from, number one, our anatomy, which is why, women have these pointed feet now, right? These pointed feet that look like this because we shove them in shoes that are changing the shape of our feet. Same with men. I don't know if they're as pointy because you guys aren't pushing yourselves into these high heels. And then you're, now because you're on high heels, it's pushing more pressure down into the very front of your toes and continue to push them together. So going back to that concept is grounding. And there's a lot of people who are runners that, are really looking for wide shoes so that they can let their toes spread, because that is how we move better. We grip the ground better. So aside from I guess the physical components is, when you're grounding, you're putting your feet into the ground. You talked about, some radiation or like EMFs or whatever is, if you were holding your phone and you were barefoot, you are directly connected and sourced to ground. So you have a reduction of what you are absorbing from those EMFs because grounding, connecting with earth, you receive earth elements through you. You receive earth's atoms, and those atoms are negative ions that close off our free radicals. And you've probably heard of free radicals as like, oh, if we have free radicals, it leads to cancer because that, is kind of like a diseased cell or whatever, and it's free, it's roaming around. Now it can pick up and turn into a disease. So literally grounding yourself is, number one, connecting yourself with nature, which is very beneficial for our spiritual health, like our soul, like how we feel connected to earth, to ourselves. And if we're connected to ourselves and we're connected to earth, we are closer and connected to higher power, whatever you believe. You can say God, you can say creator, source, or whatever. So you're kind of really connected to everything when you connect with the ground. But on top of that is you're receiving its microbes, right? We're receiving good bacteria from the ground, from the soil, and that benefits our health. mental aspect. I love to share this with my clients. A lot of people struggle with anxiety. And when you think of anxiety, it's kind of like that hyper focus, right? So our lens are very narrow. And when you step outside, you get on grass and you open up and you see, like, if you especially do this out in nature, is now instead of this narrow range we're looking at, computer screens and our phones right here, is we see more. Now we're open and more receptive, and things start to slow down. We aren't so anxious. If we can open our minds and we can see further out, that's beneficial. You go to a walk in the woods, you're looking out at the landscape, and just looking at nature, being in nature or being on nature is so beneficial to us in those mental and emotional aspects too, is because it helps regulate us. If we're putting our bare feet on the ground, we're not thinking out of our heads, right? And anxiety sometimes too is ruminating, or, just kind of, you're feeling with your mind is out in space. You're like an airhead or whatever. And grounding yourself, putting yourself on ground, you pull yourself down and you get back into your body of like, oh no, we're actually here. We're pulling ourselves back down. There's so much connected to this, but yeah, it's supportive of immune health, because if we're helping fight off free radicals and closing those out with negative ions, we're supporting so much mental, emotional aspects too. It's just across the board, microbiome, like supporting our gut health. Inflammation. Even just standing with your feet on the ground is reducing inflammation.
Is there a recommended amount of time that you tell people to ground for?
No, I don't, because I feel like too, let yourself have your experience you're going to have. And I think when we put time on things, aren't we just tripping ourselves back up into some expectation?
Yeah.
Or tripping ourselves back up into deadlines and set dates? Yeah. And that's kind of what a lot of our society is too, why we're all like super intense and stressed out, is we're always having this like set time for our body to do this thing.
Right.
And it's just like, let whatever you feel like is right for you. Like maybe you literally take a few steps out there. Like I have no specific time I'm even doing it. It's just like, we're doing this. Okay, we're done. Like there's no time limit on anything.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's how our society made us think, right? Like in these time segments, like I'm going to do this for an hour. You work out for an hour. Like that's the common
gold standard.
That's the gold standard, right? An hour. Like you do an hour. Yeah. And even like I'm trying to break myself from that. So it's funny you called me out on it, because I am trying to break myself of like the little time things. And
that is not just you.
Yeah.
It just a lot of women that I work with too. I want to typically work with women for a year to really push them past this like 12-week concept, or this 3 months I'll get to my goal. And it's like, fuck that. Does your body, like, let's look out in nature, right? Does deer, are they like, oh, we have to be here at this certain time and do this thing? Like, no, they don't. They just flow with whatever, they choose to do in that day. And yes, there's, regulated with the sun and the moon, so they know when's their peak hours to come out and stuff like that. But does a wave, worry about what time it's going to get to this destination? Like things just flow. And the more you put a deadline to your goal or to this state of being, you're going to be further from that. And a lot of women that I'm working with are trying to heal their bodies. We're trying to heal gut health. We're trying to heal hormones. And if you put a deadline on that I need to be here at this time, you already shot yourself, because you can't expect your body to perform how you think it should. It's got to feel safe and let it do its thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to do. It's hard to do, especially those like the workout things and all that stuff. So you bought out birth control, and I wanted to pick your brain on that. When you have, or do you have children?
No, but I'd want to. Okay. I'm on a 2-year prep, get myself ready for children.
When you do have children, and if they are girls, are you gonna put them on birth control?
See, I don't want to like force them into anything. I just want them to be educated. So I'll be over here, letting them know this information. But we're all going to fuck up, right? We're all going to make mistakes.
Right.
And so do I want them to be on it? No. But also I don't want to try to force them into do something. And I want them to learn themselves, because I would not probably be as passionate about birth control if I wasn't on it. I wouldn't be helping women with hormone imbalances if I didn't do the damage myself. So not that I want them to, but just kind of surround them with information on both aspects, pros and cons, because I feel like that's what we're missing when we go to our gynecologist is, okay, yes, these are the potential side effects, reality, they are going to happen. Like they're not potential. That is 100% going to happen to you, just in different capacities. But we weren't really educated on what the long term is of this, what this actually can impact. I know when I went to get on birth control is I knew instinctively, I had that intuition. I was like, I know this isn't right for me. But I had pressure from a significant other that their experience sexually would be more pleasurable if I was on it. And they were tired of binding condoms. So the intentions that I had for birth control weren't even my own. And so that's where I feel like there's things that I did that were against my own judgment. And then I just kind of like sought it out. It's like, okay, well, let's just, see about this. And I did not like it at all on birth control pills. Did not like how I experienced life. I did not like how I thought. I was just hungry all the time. I'm like, what is happening here? So then I switched to a different type of birth control. I got the IUD, and I thought that was the best choice to make that I could at that point in time. And then in 2019, I just said, fuck it all. Like, I'm just getting rid of this. Like, I just want to see what my body can do on its own. Like, I want it to just operate naturally as I had always intended. Like, even in bodybuilding, people are always taking shit to like help them get leaner and taking testosterone. I was like, I never was on board with that. I was like, I've always been natural minded. So it's like, I want to just let my body do what it's going to do. And I got a lot of hate for that too. So even when you're on a path to, changing your life and supporting your health, is you might get a lot of hate for it. I got scared by the doctor that, well, now you're going to get pregnant. It's like, why aren't you educating us on the other options out here? It is not just birth control. Like, there's literally a small window of time that women can actually get pregnant. But number one, we're so disconnected from our bodies. We don't even fucking know when that is. And we're using an app, which still doesn't know you at all, to guide us on our fertility. And it's like, we need to be taught how to actually understand our fertility awareness method, tracking our own body temperature, tracking our own cervical position, tracking our own cervical mucus. Like, all these things connect together that we can literally start to pay attention to our bodies so we can have protection that way.
There's so much pressure on women. I don't know about other countries, but I know for sure in America with, breast augmentation, birth control, like there's a lot of pressure just to fuck up y'all's body and put in a lot of stuff in it. Like, I don't want my daughters to take birth control. Learning a little bit about it and understanding what it does from people like yourself. I don't want them to risk that stuff. And I don't want them to have to battle the outcome of being on it. Just, even if you just say it out loud, like, I'm going to take this pill for whatever, 8 years so I don't get pregnant. And it's going to regulate my body in a way so I don't get pregnant. That sounds crazy in itself.
When you think about it, the simple act that it's doing is literally shutting down our hormones and falsifying what your body's perceiving. It's synthetic. Like, it's entirely synthetic. So we are having this communication within our body. Hormones are essentially just a chemical communication. It's like, hey, we're here to do this thing. This is what I do. And when we shut that down and we do it synthetically, like, we have to understand that's going to fuck things up. We're not a robot. And women who are on birth control, I was kind of tying this into the post that I made, is like, we are tricked into like thinking that this is going to trick our body into being pregnant. Like, that's what my gyno told me. It's like, your body's going to think you're pregnant, but you're not. And I'm like, okay. But here's the thing. It actually shuts down all your hormones, and it's a synthetic hormone. So it's not always received the same. Like caffeine, when you drink coffee that is just purely sourced caffeine compared to energy drinks, they feel completely different, don't they? Yeah. Like, you can have a French press and a freaking Red Bull, and this Red Bull makes you feel all sorts of crazy things. Yes, it has other things in it, but it's usually synthetic caffeine. So it's going to be perceived by our differently. And that's like with these, birth control pills and contraceptives is, and in that way, it's like, it actually shuts our hormones down, disconnects women from their bodies, like literally a physical disconnect. And that, the craziest thing about birth control is, women actually smell out their optimal partner. Like, we actually can sniff out who is going to be our best mate. And that is like, I don't want to say evolutionary, but that is instinctual that we have. And men as well, too. When you are wanting to have your long-lasting partner, men can actually smell from the odors from a woman's back.
Oh, wow.
If she is fertile for planting the seed. So we are, and it's kind of interesting to think about why the back is, because you think about, primates or whatever, like
Yeah.
they pretty much mounted from the back, right? So they can pick up that scent from our backs, and it was on our chest too, and our armpits. So women will actually be attracted to their optimal mate by their sweat, like by their smell, by their pheromones. And when you are on birth control, that alters your selection for an optimal mate. And you're going to choose somebody that is not the opposite of your physiology. So when we're looking off of birth control, we're going to pick somebody that is opposite of us to be the most compatible. But when you're on birth control, that's altered. And so you, since your body thinks you're pregnant, you're not really interested in a mate either. Because it's like, oh, we're pregnant. So you don't even give two shits about mating. You don't even really pick a partner that is actually more genetically fit for you because you're on birth control. So it can alter who you're even attracted to. So if you started dating someone when you were on birth control, and maybe you decide to get off of birth control and now you're going to have, a family, you're going to plan for a family, you might find that that relationship is not conducive to you at all anymore. You're not even attracted to that person because you were on birth control the whole duration of your relationship, and now you're off of it and your attraction is entirely different.
So you could be attracted to a soy boy when you're on birth
Yeah.
control, and then you get off and you're
Yeah.
like, no, I need Tarzan. Where's Tarzan at?
Yeah. And
Right?
so when you think about it and you talk about divorce rates, like, are we considering birth control a factor in our divorce rates?
Oh,
I
that's
don't
so
know.
wild. Okay, so you mentioned something about smelling your significant other.
Oh, yeah.
I love to smell my wife. I know it sounds weird, but in the mornings, I wonder, is it high? Is the scent like higher in the morning? Like I smell her like in her neck, and you said armpit too, because I'm like, it's not body odor. I guess it is body odor,
Right.
but it's like
Well, it is,
it's a
but
scent that
it's
turns me
attractive
on
to
though.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's what I'm kind of thinking. You mentioned morning is your testosterone when you wake up is like aligned with the sun. So when you wake up, your testosterone is coming up. And as the sun goes down, your testosterone is coming down too. So you might just be more sensitive to it because
Uh,
that's when your testosterone's heightened. I don't know, just something that I'm thinking. So don't
okay.
quote me that that's actually factual. I'm
Okay.
just wondering.
Okay. Because I always like to smell it. I'm like, ooh, you smell so good right now. She goes, I'm not even wearing anything. I'm like, I don't know why,
Yeah,
but
it's just your smell. Yeah, that's
it's
that's pheromones. But then think of all the fragrances that we have for women that they're wearing. And
oh
I
yeah,
literally walked by a woman the other day, and like it smells good, but at the same time, I was like, this is a toxic load. Like
yeah,
I just like smelled her whole like aura, and I'm like, man, like
yeah.
that's not actually attractive. Like
No,
instinctually, men aren't actually attracted to that like plethora of fragrance chemicals that you're spraying on your body.
we've been doing a deep clean over the last year, I guess, in our household, and it started with plastic containers.
Yep.
Um, I talked to somebody on the podcast, and we talked about how plastic basically wrecks your body. So we got rid of plastic containers. Then it was the nonstick pan, so it went to stainless.
Yeah.
Then it was all the crap that we put on our body. So we actually
Yep.
started a natural skincare business, but we I guess that's what pushed us to is like we couldn't really find anything that was truly natural because
Yeah.
everything that says natural like is wild too. Anything that says natural is basically a load of bullshit because
Right.
it's just you can't find clean ingredients in stores. It's hard to.
If anything's labeled natural, that is just a free for all.
Yeah,
It's mostly a gimmick of somebody's going to buy this thinking it's natural, but it's not.
yeah.
So yeah, organic is kind of where you want to look. And there's some apps that you can find, like Think Dirty. I like to take that with me when I'm unsure of something.
Oh,
I'll take that with me and just kind of scan something to see. But I think you're on a great path there. That's pretty much how I started too, was cleaning up like my cookware. Like you see me drinking out of this, like I got rid of all the plastic fitness industry, the plastic shaker bottles.
oh no.
Like I had so many of those, and I'm like, they're gone.
Yeah.
Bye. So yeah, I kind of was on the same path as you. And then I kind of like my next spot in my journey was filtering water and like having a high quality filtration system, reverse osmosis. And then in my shower, filtering my shower water, and in my home, the air doctor filtering my air in my home because I'm in an apartment too. So the air in here can be toxic, but I don't know who's giving what up here on the top floor, right? So
Right.
that was really important to me, and especially around the train derailments that happened. I was like, I'm getting this now.
Oh yeah, that's right. So do you live near East Palestine?
No, I think we're an hour, a little over an hour of some sort from there.
Are you
But that
north
was
or
just,
south?
I would be west.
West of it? So you're like, oh, you're clear from the
Yeah.
watershed going your way. Because I
Yeah,
think
but I mean,
ish, I guess.
who knows? Because I saw that people in Florida were having the dead fish all rising. So it's
Yeah.
like, was it going down the Ohio River? So hard to know. That's too close for comfort. So I was definitely, when you experience something like that, you're really like, oh, I need to actually think about this stuff because it can impact me. Just because it was an hour away, who's to say? Like,
Yeah. Well, that's
we
really
have
close. Yeah.
our air quality was terrible this summer because of the wildfires in Canada.
Yeah.
So like, it just because it's not directly near you, it can even be in another country, and it's in totality impacting us all.
Oh, absolutely. Real quick on animal based foods or organs, do you talk to your clients about liver and bone marrow and butter and all that stuff?
Yeah, I think it's kind of individual too, because some of my clients aren't on the same, they're not on the same journey. They're kind of going at their own. So it'll be things that I might mention, we're talking about bone broth or collagen. But I'll kind of guide them there. But if they're not receptive to it, it's like, okay, that's fine. But it's yeah, always just kind of like in maybe a little bit of a conversation. Because I know personally I can't eat straight liver.
It's hard. It's hard for
I
sure.
cannot do it. So it's like the capsules will probably be my way. Other than Force, I think it's Force of Nature. It's a brand
Yeah.
of meat, and they have like liver and heart and beef all combined together and
Yep.
grounded. And I'm like,
Yep.
okay, that's the way to do it. That's the only way I can step my foot into it to actually eat it.
Yeah. Do you follow them? Well, I guess one of the owners, his name's Taylor Collins, Rome Ranch on Instagram.
Uh-uh.
I'm too much of a fanboy, but so he's on the. We did a podcast with him last year, and that's kind of what started me on the journey of regenerative agriculture.
Yeah.
And we went out to his place, and he's part of the documentary. He's such an awesome dude. He's worth a follow if you look him up. I think it's Rome Ranch on Instagram. He shares some pretty,
Rome
yeah,
Ranch.
Rome Ranch on IG. But he shares some awesome information about agriculture. He just posted this video yesterday about the soil. We were talking about soil. So his ranch butts up right next to a conventional farm where they do tilling, and so it's like
Yeah.
you have his grass and his land where it's no till, and then you have a tilled land. He put the thermometer in the ground, and it was like 137 degrees, something crazy. And then he went over to his land and put the thermometer in the ground. It was like 87 degrees. It was
Yeah.
like
No,
wild.
that's
The difference
crazy.
is like
Yeah.
the difference that it could make. So,
Yeah. I was watching it. I feel like it might even been Zac Efron's documentary.
oh yeah,
He has one episode on it, and they were talking about that same thing, is that disrupting the soil and tilling it causes more heat to occur. And it's like this can be something pivotal in
yeah,
climate change. And I feel like people say climate change, but we really want to say global warming because there's like different thoughts about either of those. But just sharing that, it's like that is solid proof.
right.
Solid proof.
Well, and again, I will butcher the hell out of all the good information that he shares, but he says that like those fields connected on a string, so it's like acres, hundreds of acres, all these ranches are all connected, has the ability to push heat up and really affect rain patterns and how much it rains in areas. So it's wild to think
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. Well, people are already trying to control our weather too
I
by
know, I know.
some other.
What is that? Bill Gates? He's wanting to like shoot up something or reflect something in the sky or something.
Yeah, I forget who it was that said to help with global warming and climate change, they were going to block the sun
Yeah, that sounds
because
really
it's
smart.
it's nature's problem. So
Yeah,
we're gonna block nature because the sun is obviously the devil and it's causing all this shit. So
that's so
yeah, it's
wild.
how are we here? Like I'm like, how are we here? We have all these brilliant people, and that was the solution.
Yeah.
I'm glad that got shut down, but blows my mind.
Wild times we're in. Well, Katarina, it's Katarina, right?
Yeah,
Okay, I said it right.
yeah.
What are some things like high level tips that people can take from the
Mhm.
conversation and implement in their lives? If there's like a top three things that they could do, what would you suggest?
Mm. All right. The first one I'm just thinking of, kind of just in the general theme of what we talked about here, is just returning back to nature. go back to making more food at home. And it doesn't have to be like literally you're just laying down in nature. Like that's not exactly what I mean, but returning back to nature and nature's ways and getting outside more. Spending real time with people, like especially women, we actually heal when we're together, which is, why you saw in previous history, women had communities together. They like had rituals they did together and ceremonies. Like women heal together because of estrogen. So get with people, like have real human connections, get outside. If you're a gym bro or a gym girl, like who are you outside of that, right? Like we're indoors more than we are outside. I think they said we're indoors like 90% of the time, right? So can you start to make little divots in time that you spend outside doing whatever? That doesn't have to be always a workout. Like that could just be sitting outside, going to green areas. So I would say number one is just like returning to nature, and two, thinking about the food that you're eating and seeing food as a means to give to your body, to restore, to rejuvenate, to heal your body. Because the moment we take it away, we're already in a stressful society. And if we keep taking it away, always dieting, but yet we're always consuming processed foods, which are refined sugars, enriched, which is really just removing the nutrients and putting fake ones back in, like we have to think about that. So if you're a woman listening, like give yourself like the honor and what you deserve to give yourself food. You're going to change how you think. It's going to change how you show up in the world. It's going to change how you react to people in stressful situations. When you're undernourished, you are more irritable. You are more likely to snap at your kid. And how can we teach our children to be regulated if we're not even regulated ourselves? So kind of goes back to like a nervous system standpoint, is your nervous system is directly related to being nourished and then being in nature grounds us. So I can say with it, those are the two things: is, see food as nourishment and like Morse code to your body. Like, what are we giving our body with this message? And the last one, I don't know, the last tip to give. I feel like there's so many I could say here. I'm big on detoxing, but detoxing in means of reducing our toxin load. So if you can, and it kind of picks back up with the first one of, returning back to nature, is try to be mindful of what's, in your home. And I think people see detoxing as juices and cleanses, but it's so much more than that. It's sometimes getting outside. It's, touching yourself, giving yourself a massage, dry brushing, changing the water that you drink, giving yourself, filter the shit out, reduce as much as you can. And that's even your beauty products. I think women's beauty and skincare is like glamorized with all these 50 different products. And it's like, you don't really need that. Like you could just have oil. You can just cleanse your face with oil or water, or just a little like microfiber cloth or something. Use oil. So I feel like reducing your exposure to toxins would be awesome. And toxins are across the board. It's not just plastics, it's chemicals as well. It's even alcohol, it's drugs, all of those things kind of across the board.
Those are great pieces of advice. How can people follow you and contact you?
Yeah, you can follow me at CATTY_LEE. So it's Catty Lee. I love to connect with people on there, and I really would like more women to come follow me, because I have a lot of men following me, and I feel like it changes who all my stuff is shared to. So if you want to hear more about this stuff and just more of like the holistic healing for hormones or gut health, there's so much more we could have talked about with gut health too. But we even could talk about parasites. Like there's just so much in this conversation to talk about. But if you want to join these conversations, that would be a really good place to connect with me and just kind of like dive into this at your own journey in your own right.
Awesome. Well, Catarina, I appreciate your time. It's been fun, and like I said, I really enjoy your info, and my wife is a big fan as well. So appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
When this comes out, I'll send you an email, and then I'll try not to spam you too much on IG, but I try to do like 3 or 4 or 5 clips. Just depends on how much time I got and all that good stuff. But I'll tag you on IG. So.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You have a beautiful day. Go get grounded today.
Thank you.
See you later.
Thank you for asking me. See ya.
Bye-bye.